Coach, you mentioned that the tackler dictates to the runner which way he's going to go. I guess it's leverage. It's leverage. What do you mean by that? Can you explain that a little bit to our listener?
Well, not many running backs like to get hit. Now, that's just common sense. And when you're taking a bad angle to the ball carrier, if you're telling him, I'm going to cut you off, you're not going to go continue the direction you're going to get because I'm going to bust you. So what does the ball carrier do? He goes opposite. If you go there and you take the proper angle that dictates to the ball carrier, you're going to have to make a cut because you're not going to, what I'm saying that, you're not going to make a cut into me. I'm going to push you where I want you to go. Well, if my body is placed in a proper position in relation to the ball carrier will continue to grow. So I've eliminated that portion. I've eliminated the cutback. And so all he's going to do now, he'll continue where he's going and just try to outrun you. And that's where you got to make the adjustment to get back in position. But you ought to know he's going to do it because he's not going, if you take the cutback away, he's not going to just run into you. Or if he is, he couldn't make you miss anyway. I don't guess it's any different than you come up to a red light and the policeman's there, the light's out, and he's telling you either to stop or he's telling you to go to the right or to the left. Well, if he's giving you a right turn signal, you don't turn left. Well, that's what the DB is doing, or the defensive player. We're telling you, you're not coming to the left. You got to go to the right. I know that, and now I'll adjust my angle to you. Now, it's awfully hard, to convince kids that you're the traffic cop. But you are. You just watch it. The only ones that try to run over you are the ones that want to run into you. I mean, so much about life and about football is so common and so simple. We just do things to make it harder on ourselves. And I saw that they had a drill set up in their tackling drills where they did that yesterday. And I could tell you every time, I was standing over on the side, I could tell you every time when the back was going to go left or go right, simply by the position that the DB took.
Yeah. We saw a lot of different types of drills yesterday.
Very, very good trips too.
Yeah, which ones which ones got your attention?
I like that, especially because they were teaching open field tackling. And that is probably the most critical thing with tackling now than ever before because they split people out and they force you to defend a bigger field. And it gives more room for the receiver, running back, whoever it is. It puts the pressure on the defensive back now. And you don't get good at it if you don't have a lot of reps at it. Mm-hmm. It wasn't a drill. When you get caught in a situation like that, that's not a drill where you try to create bruises on the ball carrier. Mm-hmm. That's where you just got to make a tackle. Mm-hmm. And it forces you to use your eyes, it forces you to use your hands, and it forces you to use your feet. Mm-hmm. And you can't tackle without all three of them.
Well, Coach, Florida State is transitioning back to a 4-3 defense under Coach Adam Fuller after experimenting with the 3-4 last year. How do you think the personnel they have on defense fits what he's trying to do from what you've been able to see?
Well, I think in the past they've recruited for with intentions of playing a 4-3 defense. Last year they had some defensive ends that they asked to play in space and to cover, and that wasn't what they were brought to Florida State. They just didn't have 3-4 personnel, and they were just going to make them do it. And Jim Gladden always talks about trying to drive a square peg into a round hole. It just doesn't fit. Of course, they're playing without some players right now that have been injured, had surgery for one reason or another. probably two of their best defensive backs, their two best defensive ends, and maybe some other players I don't remember, but yeah, there's a defensive tackle too that will probably. So you're playing without 5 of your top 11 players, supposedly. But what bothers me, every one of those kids needed the off-season work, and they missed it. They're just going to have to find a way, and most of them were kids that needed it. They
But
needed it.
you mentioned missing off-season work. Obviously, news broke yesterday that all athletic-related activity for any sport, including football, has been stopped, mandated by the ACC and then NCAA. Will have a significant impact on what Coach Norvell is able to do with the football program. Based on what we know now, they will not have, at least spring practice has been pushed back, if not canceled. What are some of the issues that creates for Coach Norvell?
Well, I think number one is just the overall installation of his offense, defense, his kicking game, and all 3 areas certainly need improvement. There's some questions that you don't understand. That's 3 practices. Used to that would mean 17 more when I was coaching.
Tough 20.
Yeah, tough 20. And we gave a shirt out to every player that didn't miss a practice. Then they went to 15. But they limited that even more so that 3 of them were in shorts. 3 of them you could scrimmage, including your spring game. And then you had 5 days, I believe it was, where you'd go half pads, where you could scrimmage, go fundamentals for half your practice, and you could scrimmage. Well, that limits you to basically 5 days or whatever you could teach tackling. Because you don't teach it in the scrimmaging, you just see the results. And now they've had one practice in pads. 8 is not enough, or 5 is not enough. I remember one time Coach Bowden, our offensive coordinator and I was in a little disagreement about what we should do about those 5 days in half pad. And I said, I can't teach tackling. We can't teach tackling if we just the only time we do it is 3 days in scrimmage, 1 being the spring game. He said, well, I believe you need to have your players that you're going to play in the fall practicing in the spring. I said, I don't disagree with that. But anyway, I said, come on, let's go see Coach Bowden. We went in there and told him what the problem was, and he said, buddy, he looked at me and said, buddy, can you do that? And I said, yes, sir. We can do it, but you better score twice as many points as you did the year before. I said, we can't teach tackling in 5 days. And they were half days anyway. And so he looked at the coach and said, we're going to tackle. And you can't create toughness, mental or physical, if you don't have contact involved with it. And because, you put a helmet on and a pads on for a reason, because there's supposed to be contact. And if your players don't get it or they don't give it, you don't get the results you want. So maybe that's old school, but the people I learned it under were people that played for national championships most of the time.
So with the new ruling, self-imposed by the Atlantic Coast Conference, which could change, I imagine Coach Norvell will be in David Coburn's office today.
After he set up a meeting last night.
Yeah, exactly. It could change.
Yeah.
But if it were not to change, that makes it a very difficult situation preparing for next year, doesn't it?
Well, it does, and it's all equal. Everybody follows. They've got the same rules, but where you're going to see it affected the most is in your blocking and your tackling. If you don't have quality reps and you don't have kids getting better, the ABCs of the fundamentals, it's not gonna be the kind of game you want.
So how much can you accomplish? Suppose, worst case scenario, they don't get back on the field with the kids until August. How much can you really achieve?
Well, I don't know, it's an area we never have been put into, you know. I would hope that the ACC or NCAA, whoever it is, it's just like, the ACC says you can't practice. As of what, yesterday?
Yes, sir.
And the SEC, the rule is, they don't have a rule that says you can't have organized practice.
That's correct.
There's gonna be inequality, goes into that, there's no doubt about it. You know, you look at it and you think, well, why don't we refer back to the 8-hour rule, which was a rule that you followed before you started spring practice. You could continue your lifting, your strength and off-season conditioning program, and you would allow your coaches to still meet. You know, that would be a better scenario. I just said, you know, there's not gonna be any football till next fall. That's not good for anybody.
Well, the good news is Florida State is on spring break this week.
Right.
So there was gonna be no meetings or practices anyway.
Yeah.
Come, gives Norval a week to lobby. And other coaches, I am sure,
Yeah.
will be lobbying. And you can have no practice,
Right.
but still allow an 8-hour rule that would help you.
Right. If you did that, that would be a better scenario, a better way to do it, rather than just you limit the contact whatsoever. You know, no travel, no recruiting, no kids on campus or whatever. You can live with that because you don't have any choice. But at least those kids are here. Don't let them lay up in the dorm and take naps in the afternoon like I do now and expect them to get any better. Let them meet. Let them lift. But they ought not to have just total, deny total access to the staff and the players.
Well, the important words are until further notice.
Right.
So that's critical. That can happen at any time. We got a week here to hopefully mitigate the rulings.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask too, as long as we're on this new ruling, they've restricted recruiting, no
Yeah.
recruiting. Now, you know, to be clear about that, the reason they're doing that is, again, the spread of the virus. If your coaches are out visiting high schools
Yeah.
where they're exposed to the virus and come back to campus,
Yeah.
they expose everybody on campus to whatever they
And that makes sense.
Same thing with no
Unofficial visits.
unofficial visits. So you can't take a kid who could be positive and bring him onto your campus and expose.
How do you know he's positive?
Well, you don't. I mean, test the.
I think that's a solid rule. Prospects can't come on campus and coaches can't go off campus.
I got a follow-up to that, though, Coach.
All right.
I think what made the dynasty, what made you guys so great in the 90s was your ability to evaluate.
Yeah.
And you've got to go watch practice to do that in May. If this suspension is still in existence come May, how will that affect it?
How do you know the high schools aren't gonna shut down and they won't be playing football in the spring anyway?
That's exactly right. That's a good
That could
point.
happen.
Well, the other side of that also, another thing that you guys did an outstanding job when you were at Florida State was you guys had great relationships with the high school coaches.
Yeah.
You all the entire staff, whether going back to 1985 or even back to the early 2000s, as a coaching staff, you traditionally had the same recruiting territory for a
Yeah.
long time. This obviously will impact Mike Norvell's staff in building relationships. That's another component of this that's going to be affected moving forward, and being as their first spring, that also handicaps them from that perspective.
Well, you're gonna find negative issues that are gonna come out of it, but, you know, it's just like NCAA rules. They're rules that you wish they didn't have, but you have to follow them because of the consequences that could occur. It's gonna hurt them because the only people that they visited, was during the 4-week time or whatever it was in the recruiting process this year. So it's gonna be a disadvantage any way you look at it. Maybe they can do a better job. I don't think they've restricted in the number of calls or, that you have, or the social media or whatever.
Now that will be something that will help
So
sustain.
you gotta be really organized and
Let
do
me
the
ask
best
you,
of it.
let me ask you a specific question about that, because I was at a meeting yesterday where it was being considered. While you can't have a gathering of people, you can teleconference.
Yeah,
Now, if high school spring football occurs and you're not allowed to go out and evaluate prospects, can you see enough from a well-shot video? If they gave you the whole video of the practice, wide angle, could you make any evaluation off of film?
well, it looks like you have to.
That's what,
But like I said, what if they're not practicing? You know,
you're dead.
There's no need for you to go off campus anyway, other than to gather information academically. You know, the thing that we always did, Coach Bowden insisted that we, one of the first things we did was we went to the, and found out about the academic part.
Guidance counselor.
Yeah, that's where you went. And that's, you know, you, people that you trust and know, you wanna know what kind of kid he is. What kind of character, what does he stand for? You tell a lot about a kid, just go and visit with the people before you talk with the coach.
Now, you can't, if you
What you
can't do.
can't always tell, you can't always tell, some of the areas about the kid by being in there. You need to visit with the coach. You need to know what will he do when he gets knocked down. We always used to tell our kids, you know, we don't want you on the ground, but you better be on your way up before you hit the ground. That's the kind of urgency it was. And of course, the emphasis being don't get knocked down. And see, I don't know how many of the people in our recruiting area now that our staff has had a chance to visit with.
Exactly.
You're gonna have to figure out a way to get it done other than personal.
Yeah,
appearances.
some of that is I'm sure, if you have a good contact in high school,
Mm-hmm.
an FSU graduate who's a teacher there or a principal, you can pick up the phone and call them
Sure
and ask
you
them. But I don't imagine it tops face-to-face visit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the staff have been holding high school coaches socials almost on a weekly basis, and obviously that's been taken away from them. Coach, I did notice that you were spent some time with some local high school coaches yesterday at practice.
Mm-hmm.
Did they share their thoughts on what their impressions are of the new staff and Coach Norvell?
I've not heard any negative feedback at all.
Yeah.
I've been to banquets, I've been to a few places, you know, visiting with them, and but I think that what they're trying to build is resonating, and it's going to be a little bit harder for them, but you're going to have to outwork some of those people that just take it for granted.
Now, how excited are you once we get back to wherever the new normal is to see what happens with what he's trying to build now?
Well, I think that was established in the 12 days that they had in their off-season program, and I wondered at first, what's significant about 12 days? They play 12 games. And each day was an investment for one of those 12 opponents. It didn't have anything to do with getting in a playoff or anything like that. But if you're not taking care of those each game one by one, you're not gonna get to those anyway. But yeah, I really like what I see. I think they've really opened their doors for high school coaches and people to come in and talk, visit, and you know, the investment. If you don't invest in it, it's just like a piggy bank. You're not gonna get anything out of it more than what you put in it.
Coach, I've seen that they've embraced you and Jim and some of the other coaches. You've gotten to spend time with them in meetings. Can you talk a little bit about that, what that's like, what that's been like?
What I've seen is a plan that they've established. They've evaluated, they've recruited in the limited time that they had here, but they don't ever stop recruiting. I mean, it goes on every day, and it takes out part of the practice or their work day, but that's just as important. And recruiting has got to be a top priority. Everybody knows that. Even the cheerleaders know that. But the next key is development. You know, you got to evaluate them, you got to recruit them, you got to develop them. And they're not trying to go from A to D or A to C. They're doing it just like you teach a football team. You start with the fundamentals, you start with discipline, you start holding them accountable to what their responsibility is all about. One guy don't do his job, it's hard to be successful. And the consequence is not up downs or running gassers. That just reminds you that you got to do a better job. But it's all based on winning and doing the things that you can be successful on and off the field.
You got anything?
No.
Well, Coach, we appreciate you taking time to visit with us today. Hopefully, we'll all get through this safe and healthy, and spring practice will be brought back later on towards the end of the semester, and we'll get another chance to sit down with you at the end of spring and hopefully get back to football and really all sports and back to some sense of normalcy as a society.
Just one more reminder.
Yes, sir.
Stay away from the coronavirus.
I will do that.